at the Senate. Now, so far, the Justices Eric Ogola, Anthony Mrima, and Frida Mugambi have declared their stand. And one of the things that, of course, have come out strongly is that the courts are still exercising their restraint. They will not interfere with the lawful process. And, of course, the other arms of government are pretty much doing what they ought to do, as is enshrined and allowed by the Constitution. Some of the things that the judges have also said is that the application by the Deputy President came out as premature and anticipatory, and that they still have an opportunity, however, to approach the courts once this process goes through the Senate and is concluded and completed. They talked about the court will check the constitutionality of the process, as is something that we also said here with the panelists, and they will serve and hold dearly what the Constitution says around the process. But of course, that is what has happened at the corridors of justice, which then allows what you have just seen, the Senate, to pick up the impeachment process. And we have seen just before we exited the Senate, the Speaker of the Senate, Amason Kingi, also just putting the House in order, ready to begin this impeachment debate. We have a whole program that the Senate brought forth to the public yesterday that is for today and on Thursday. But we continue to also sample your feedback. Remember that the judge has spoken about upholding public interest. We have legal voices in studio that will explain what does it mean, public interest. Maybe some are confusing it with public participation, but we'll get that clarity shortly. So the application so far, in a nutshell, by the Deputy President, of course, seeking to prevent the impeachment, especially at the Senate level, has been thrown out, or rather, in a simple terms, declined. The Senate will resume shortly. All right, but as we wait for the Senate to resume, let me come back to the panel. Gentlemen, thank you very much for staying with us. Let me just start with Wakili, and once again to remind you, the gentleman in studio, Dr. Harun Isaac Hassan.
Thank you very much.
Right at the center is a leadership and governance analyst. We also have right at the extreme left, Fwamba NC Fwamba, who is a governance analyst and Nairobi politician. That's a very interesting one, Fwamba, but we will also take that at the last remarks. But we have Paul Mugambi, who is a policy and governance expert, but allow me to also key in that you have legal expertise. A word emerged, and that is res judicata, is it?
It's one of the issues that was up for determination,
yes,
by the High Court this morning, and you've seen the High Court dismiss that petition filed by the lawyers representing the Deputy President,
yes,
because the matter has been determined already. That's a simple explanation of res judicata. Res judicata principle means that the matter has already been determined by this court. So why are you coming with the same matter before the same court? Perhaps they would have moved to the Court of Appeal, a different bench, to get the matter heard there. But the court has determined, we have already, a single judge bench had this matter, so the matter is settled. That's res judicata. Secondly, they have said that there is no prejudice suffered by the Deputy President if the impeachment process goes on. That's a summary of it. And lastly, they have said that the person of the Deputy President is a chance to get remedies from courts after the process is complete in the Senate. So it doesn't have to come before or during the impeachment trial. So the court basically told the legal representatives of the Deputy President that, you're putting the cart before the horse. Wait for the independent institutions to do their job, then come to us for remedies, because we will still be here. And again, you've been heard in this court, High Court, in a single judge bench again over the same issues. And now you're coming to us, a 3-judge bench over the same issues. This matter is res judicata, so now the matter rests there.
I want to speak with the other, panelists, but let me just quickly look at the law again. Do you think this might play out in the, unfortunate way for Rigathi Gachagua and his team? Because not once, not twice has he gone to the courts and they have told him, we will not interfere. We are exercising restraint. It's pretty much the same thing they've been saying over and over again. They seem to have been repeating themselves in as far as maybe hinting that the Deputy President is not, is the one now that is not respecting the Constitution and allowing institutions to work. As someone who perhaps practices litigation, do you think this might play out, unfortunate for him?
I don't practice litigation.
Oh, you do not?
But I'm a lawyer,
Okay,
so
that's
I'm in other spheres of law.
Okay.
What I can say is that you can go to court as many times as you want.
All right.
It's not illegal.
Okay.
So whether the matters will meet the merits and therefore the courts will give you the orders that you're seeking is a different issue. But it's not illegal for him to go to court 24, 26 times that he has gone to court right now. I suspect you go to court again even after the process is complete,
right,
if he doesn't resign before. And the courts have been emphatic that, we have to exercise the doctrine of restraint. Let's restrain ourselves from doing what other institutions are supposed to do. And then once that process is complete, then come to us. We'll be able now to handle you. Suffice to say that the legal teams there, I think they've been trying to test whether they can have a small window because they think they don't have the numbers. They do their maths. Mm-hmm. Maybe they test and feel that they don't have the numbers of the Senate or the National Assembly, and they feel this might buy more time, this might inflate the process and then kill the momentum and those kind of things. But you've seen, it's clear.
Fwamba, NC Fwamba. Governance analysts now, there have been concerns, and there are people who are actually texting in and saying, once the courts declare, right, before we were of course anticipating they would, their position, and that they say that this particular impeachment trial continues through the Senate, Gachagua would exercise this one other option he had to resign.
For one thing that has been so consistent, I'll get back to, is it Einstein who said, or insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. Like now, the over 26 petitions that he has made in court were ill-informed, in my opinion. Because even from a layman's perspective, you understand that the Constitution is very clear about separation of powers. And the judiciary was never going to interfere with the institutional processes of Parliament. And that I consider it time wasted in that process. You should have used it to do something else. So I do not know what he's up to, because he's been making mistakes from one point to the other. And from where I stand, I think it could be based on naivety or lack of understanding the Constitution, that he's still insisting on remaining in power. As we have talked about the numbers that are in Senate, there's no likelihood of his survival. Resignation will have given him a lifeline to act as a politician outside government and organize himself for future ambitions. But unfortunately, the moment he's impeached, he's going to be in the cold for 10 years. And even going back to the courts might take a very long time to and fro, and including these other allegations that are coming up through the affidavits, if they are ever pursued. Remember, I was very keen on what Boshole said in Parliament about the issues of Ruto must go. And she said that could border on something like treason. Look at the kind of things that are likely to come up against Gachagua, even if he wins his impeachment or not, or even if he goes to court to seek reprieve or not. So I don't know what his calculations are, but I do not think they are smart. Because the moment you are impeached, we've seen previously people who have undergone impeachment. Look at like somebody like Governor Sonko or Governor Waititu. During election time, they're only being used to advance other people's ambitions. They come and help other people to campaign, they win. Of course, they still control some masses. So
this you can substantiate. Is it in public domain?
They are no.
I'm still with you, Fwamba.
Yes.
You have said that those who have been impeached are being used to move other political
It is in public domain.
Domain.
Going by the last campaigns, I think you saw Waititu and Sonko very active in their campaigns.
Okay.
But still, they do not qualify to run for any office. So that means they can only work as political mercenaries for hire. They go there, you give them money for mobilization, they mobilize people for you, you get elected, and you stop picking their calls after being elected.
Interesting. Here's a curiosity. I want to borrow some wisdom from Dr. Harun, who is a leadership analyst. We have seen the courts come through for, I think, the most recent Mwangaza's case, Meru governor, where not once, not twice, you saw how impeachment series were quite a number. And to this point, the courts have still declared, go back and work with these same MCAs that insist in a way or another we cannot work with you. You see, we need a country to run. That's why we have a deputy deputizing a president with a vision and one manifesto for the sake of the people. All right? If I put it that way, hopefully for the sake of the people. Now, if the deputy president will insist and stand strong like he declared in his presser, that he would rather die on his feet and not on his knees, how would the working relationship, work? I know there's a constitution that sometimes should not really care about emotions and that people should work. But how are you seeing this power play out? As far as if he's not impeached in Senate, or if he's impeached and the courts, pretty much save him at the last minute.
Anki, in African proverb, we say the day the monkey is destined to die, all trees are slippery.
Yes.
And I mean,
Can you
the
translate
deputy
that in vernacular?
the deputy,
It's written in vernacular.
the deputy president has tried all means, particularly the judiciary at all levels. I don't understand how senior counsel Muite, who is one of the renowned legal personality, elite, could not differentiate a senior bench from a bench of the same level, regardless of the number. Because one of the rulings that the judge has told us, which is very significant, is that he said, regardless of whether you increase the number of bench to 3 or 7, or one single bench, these are not superior to each other in making their decision.
But Justice Muita just referred this to the CJ, unless you're speaking about the CJ. The CJ then appointed the 3-judge bench.
But that's what they requested. They requested for 3-judge bench,
yes,
not at the Supreme Court, or not to the Court of Appeal,
okay,
for the same court. And therefore, that's what they were given. You ask for a spade, you are given a spade. You'll never be given something else. But now, in relation to working, there are two aspects of the coin.
Okay.
If Gachagua is returned, he will be in isolation for some times to prove to his boss that indeed now he is loyal and he's able to do his job, and he won't be going beyond, he won't go overboard as he did now, and of course compare himself to a president. Secondly, yes, of course, comparative himself to presidency means when you speak behind the president and you give out another press statement, in legal terms, not legal terms, in governance, it is actually comparing yourself to your boss. You are not supposed to, and therefore that means he will not going to do that. And those are the things that has made him fall, if at all he falls from his seat as the Senate's proceedings continue.
Okay.
But it is not like a governor. I see my colleague has put the sample, for example, a president or a governor. When the office is vacated, immediately it should be replaced. And that's how the governors stay out. Even if they go to court, they will no longer be operating in that office. If they are impeached and the court have not salvaged them very fast, like the way Mwangaza has been salvaged immediately. But the deputy president position is a principal assistant. And a principal assistant could be handy immediately when you need him for something, or sometimes you could still wait and say, my other machineries will work for me, and I'll think through who should be my deputy for certain time. But there are these constitutional issues. In the event that something else happens, who will be the president? Right. Of course, we have a lot of other options. There are a lot of other options that can pick the country not to collapse. But again, the reason as to why the timeline is given is because of those constitutional issues. I don't think if the deputy president will be in a position to work with the president anymore. I don't think so. Reason being the fact that the level of accusation that we are hearing is that the level of accusation is a true picture of what everybody talks about in our governance structure. And therefore, if one person who has been highlighted so clearly in terms of what he has done to warrant for him to be processed for impeachment, then I think there are things that we need to look into before he takes up his roles.
Right.
He might be given a very light role just to introduce and welcome the president in national forums, in national celebrations, and all others to stay just in the office and wait for him. Therefore, but he cannot occupy the office. Once this impeachment occurs, I know how, this is the top office. Those officers' padlocks will be changed by midday of tomorrow, before even the impeachment decision is reached. So once he is impeached, he can never go back to that office.
And that begs the question. Let me hear from Paul quickly. Paul, questions are streaming in on social media for clarity, because we're not assuming that all Kenyans back at home understand all these things as they're happening, and we're trying our best to avoid misinformation whatsoever. At what point does the deputy president completely cease to hold office? All right, you've seen that when the National Assembly declared its position, media or other blogs and all those other sorts of outlets declared him an impeached deputy president.
He is impeached.
All right, he is impeached.
He's impeached, yes.
But we do have a deputy president.
Yes, because the process is not complete.
Walk us through that, so that Kenyans understand where we are at and what it means when the Senate finally declares its position, and finally the courts, and within what timeline will the courts be looking at this issue if it goes through the Senate successfully?
You need to look at the process under Article 145 of the Constitution, and the Senate, the National Assembly initiates the process of, that's the wording of that particular article of the Constitution. I think I'll check it and read for you.
Yeah, for accuracy, it's important.
Article 145(1), a member of the National Assembly, supported by at least a third of all members, may move a motion of impeachment of the president. In this case, the deputy president, because you use the same article for the deputy president. And then goes ahead to state the grounds, and then 2 talks about if they're supported by at least 2/3 of the members of the House. And then the process is elaborate. And I want to read for you 145(7). This is more consequential where we stand right now. And that's what I'm looking at tomorrow.
Yes.
145(7) says, if at least 2/3 of all members of the Senate vote to uphold any impeachment charge, the president or the deputy president shall cease to hold office. Well, what does that mean? It means that tomorrow, if it were courts, I would say by the fall of the hammer. I would say by the pronouncement of the Speaker of the Senate, of the votes cast, that 2/3 have indeed upheld the impeachment charge. Any, by the way, it could be 1, it could be 11. Any, if one is upheld, the fellow stands impeached completely. And that article is definitive. It says he ceases to hold office. There's no recourse to that.
Let's have the layman language. Ceases to hold office. So by tomorrow, what time are we looking at? I'll look at that program.
Immediately
quickly.
after the voting and the pronouncement of
the moment the Senate Speaker pronounces that, okay, we have completed this session in the Senate, and we have all, the ayes have it. Do they do that in the Senate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Then he ceases to hold office, which means at that time, the deputy
if there's
president,
any legal recourse that he has to have some orders right now, preventing implementation of that decision. Because that decision can be implemented anytime from tomorrow, whatever time they finish voting.
So you are saying then that if the Senate Speaker declares, and perhaps it goes successfully through the Senate, the legal team of the deputy president at this point, and you're talking about this morning, should be putting their houses in order.
Even tomorrow, before that, or shortly after that decision is made, they ought to have some orders to prevent implementation of that decision. Suffice to say that the courts can still supervise that process, but for me, when you're in a hole, you don't continue digging because you sink deeper. And that is what has been happening. Even the courts are getting tired. I can read from, but I hope they'll try to look at the merits or lack of it, and at the pronouncement of the decision of the Senate by the Speaker of the House. I hope the legal team will be on standby, and they'll try to get some orders from somewhere, assuming the courts will work 24 hours, and somehow try to save himself. Otherwise, the pronouncement, the the wording of Article 145.7 is so definitive that you cease to hold office as soon as that vote is cast.
And that's why we've been saying the Senate is very, very key in this process. Fwamba, NC Fwamba, even as you speak, the courts mentioned something, public interest.
Public interest in this context is represented by the Senate as far as I'm concerned. So whatever argument that was being presented before court was actually the opposite of what it is. Public interest before the Senate is taken care of in the Constitution by the powers that are given to the Senate to impeach, because they are people's representatives. So that's they were arguing from the opposite point of view. Something else that I would like to look at is the preemptive moves that they have been making. Going to court. They are lawyers of Deputy President.
All right.
One of the prayers they made was stopping the president from naming the replacement, meaning that they already anticipate. And that's what they have been stopped from. So there's a very high likelihood that on Friday in the morning, they'll take those applications to court. But before then, between the time he's impeached at night, between the time of voting and even them going to court, the president still has time to name the replacement to Gachagua at that point. Because the 14 days start counting the moment Gachagua is impeached by the Senate, the moment the Speaker King announces that he has been impeached.
Dr. Harun, you know, the question of integrity still comes in, because as he's talking about fronting, you know, people who will be succeeding, you know, I think it's important that we also agree that electorates have a role to play at this point in time. I don't know what you would say about Kenya's participation in this matter, because if I look closely at the, you know, feedback, a number of Kenyans are saying, Ongelele Adani. All right? Talk about Adani. Talk about JKIA. Talk about, you know, the university funding model. Talk about Chief and Shah. And maybe the electorate need to understand why we are talking about the Deputy President's impeachment, their role in this at this point, and why it is at the center of all this. Or do you also agree that it's just another circus that is diverting attention? Because that is another point of contention between Kenyans and the processes that are ongoing right now. In fact, some are saying after the Deputy President, based on everything that you have said in the grounds, follow it up with the President and the members of Parliament. Once you have put the IEBC together, recall everyone else. And you know where it started, from the Gen Z going on the streets to protest and call for accountability. So where are we as a country, in all honesty, with this whole you know, status quo?
I think we are very much forgetful first as Kenyans. Something occurs, we start, it's being flared. Even our media, sometimes they leave out things which are boiling and go to the one which is boiling most recent. For example, the Adani issue, these are procedural things or legal documentations that are taking place from one step to another, and we expect our media houses to closely monitor that. And of course, other people who are interested in terms of ensuring that government do not take us to the wrong direction.
And just for clarity,
and I also want to put...
KTN and Standard Media Group,
absolutely,
I would say, is following up on that. In fact, on page 2 of the Standard, Kenyans in the dark over cost of power after Adani deal.
Exactly.
So the media, on behalf of the media.
No, I'm not accusing the media. What I'm just trying to put forward is that we don't bring it to the limelight the way we do it in the headlines, the way we do it when it is so hot. You know, we started Adani issue and it was hitting the headlines. But when Gachagua issue came, we picked up that as the most crucial thing. So it's all about how our social media, how our mainstream media popularize certain issues. Therefore, if they will have diffused the issue of Gachagua slightly, and then
is it possible?
Look, it is not possible because of the viewing aspect of, you know, you're also looking at the issue of what is there to be viewed. You know, these are the issue of what is there to be discussed, what is there to have a lot of interaction with people. These are things that people will want to focus on, but we may not want to leave behind. But coming back to the point,
yes,
in terms of whether there was a diversion or not,
and where we are as a country.
And where we are as a country, there are a lot of things which are going on, which, in essence, will have been given priorities. Parliamentarians have given a lot of their time, burning midnight energy, to impeach Gachagua. And then afterwards, they went silent, because we expected them to talk about now the emerging issues that Kenyans are facing, issues of Chief, issues of Adani. Now we are hearing Kentraco, which had already been given a contract with Adani, are likely to increase power or electricity cost, and that will going to affect the basic livelihood of Kenyans who depend solely on electricity as well as production as a result of electricity from manufacturing plants. Therefore, we have quite a number of things that our parliamentarians should look into other than sticking on the same thing that they have already dispensed and cleared it. So the Senate could have a reason to continue talking about the impeachment because it is still before them. However, members of parliament who are actually the real representative of their constituent must talk about issues that are emerging. I don't think if it is too late, because I recently, former Premier Raila Odinga has had his weight in supporting the Adani. And I can see even in the media, did he already had a share in his interest? Or why is he trying to come out and support it? These are things that Kenyans are asking themselves. Why is he there to support things that everybody is saying it is not workable for us? Secondly, if you have seen some clips going around, if you go and Google issues related to Adani in India, they are actually listed as one of the most corrupt institutions in India, and they are not even allowed to do anything. And I see their premier saying that the oppositions are complaining about it, and the premier trying to argue out why this billionaire with multiple entities and multiple ups and downs should be entertained in Kenya. And therefore, I totally agree with you. There might be element of diverting attention because we have all went into the impeachment. But I think all is not lost because what was talked about was the Adani deal in JKIA, and still the process is on, and we are still waiting for the decisions to be made. However, our parliamentarians should they should play their role and make sure that such things are also edited and looked into before they come into the limelight.
All right, it's very sensitive. It's sensitive moments for the Senate right now. And allow me to once again just not lose track of the big day. The ball is set rolling, and of course, Gachagua to put up defense in the trial chamber. Now, if we go into the Senate, let's print a picture for the viewer. What are the events we're expecting to happen in the Senate, all right, today? I'll just look at the program quickly, but of course, you can just, pick it up from there, Paul. We saw that in Parliament, there was some voting. First, there were appended signatures, then there was the, reading of this motion, there was a debate, etc. What is going to be happening in Senate today? Oh.
I'm sure you read out the program.
Yes.
That's been issued by the Senate.
Yes.
Maybe for the purposes of the viewer.
Because I'm imagining that Kenyans in the grassroots, some probably don't have internet, or we're still working on some internet to reach Kenyans where they are.
Right now, after the preliminaries at the House, because the House has begun its sittings already.
Yes.
The motion will be moved by the majority leader. He doesn't have a choice because that's his business now. It's the business of the House, so he's going to move the motion. And then, members will be allowed to canvass.
Each member?
Yeah, members. Those who you may not have anything to say.
Okay.
Some senators hardly say nothing in that House. And if you say that, you're going to infuriate the Gen Zs because they want those kind of people out as soon as possible.
The Gen Zs, you say?
They want the IBC constituted as soon as possible so that they can recall some of those senators. In fact, in my own county, there's a petition written to the IBC seeking to recall the senator because he doesn't talk in the House. After members, now the National Assembly will be called in to accuse properly, using the legal jargons to now try to show the Senate why the accusations merit. They will adduce all manner of evidence. They'll bring witnesses. You've seen the affidavits being filed.
Yes. Yes.
Because the Deputy President, when he came before the House, the National Assembly last week, he said that he doesn't own the Olive Gardens Hotel. Apparently, it's owned by a different person. The person who he mentioned has told the Senate through an affidavit that is a conduit. He's just a proxy, because it was. It's like.
Let me give you details of that one.
Yeah.
It's out in public domain. So this particular affidavit we're referring to is in regards to the Olive Garden Hotel. Now we have, a backdrop of damning contacts of a witness affidavit by Peterson Njomo Mushira, who is a close ally of Gachagua. This has been presented to the parliament, and this is what he's saying here. Njomo says in his affidavit that he has had to clarify issues following contradictions between the deputy president's response and remarks made by various members of parliament, and of course remarks, and of course he's saying here that they had some, let me just read it. He explained that the terms of the secret engagement, he and Deputy President had a secret engagement, and the terms of that secret engagement were that the Deputy President would buy the hotel from him by refunding the purchase price of 412 million shillings, as stated in his response to the motion. Now, I might not read the whole thing, but he also stated that the arrangement was that the Deputy President would instruct and pay a contractor to renovate the hotel after completion of a transaction, and he would then appoint, to protect Gachagua's undisclosed interest in the hotel, Njomo would appoint Ms. Julianne Jahenda as a signatory or agent for the hotel's account, and to further protect the DP's undisclosed interest, Ms. Julianne Jahenda will run the hotel. Is this that third person you're referring to that is now running the hotel?
That's what you're saying in the affidavit.
This I'm reading directly what's in the
so we can't really controvert that, because he says he was asked to appoint a proxy, even to run the accounts at Cooperative Bank, and those kind of things. So right now, what is happening is that the Senate is in a closed door, closed chamber. They are holding their sessions in camera. What they call pre-trial hearings. So I'm sure the KTN representatives, reporters at the Senate right now are not able to beam live the proceedings because it's a closed door session, which is pre-trial, just to try and drill for 1 hour, to try and drill the senators into what is expected of them, at what point they'll be able to intervene, at what point what cross-examination is, what re-examination is. So that is what is happening within this hour. Within the next 1 hour, after this, which is like 13 minutes or so to go, the House will sit live. I mean, the proceedings can be beamed live on our TV sets, and we'll be able to follow. Actually, because just to correct what I said earlier, because the leader of majority already moved the motion last week. Today, it is the clerk of the Senate who will read the charges.
Is it okay? Now here's a bit of where we need the clarity. What then is the role of the mover of the motion, the sponsor of the motion? That is Mwengi. Is it
Mwengi Mutuse?
Yeah.
Mwengi Mutuse will appear for 3 hours.
Okay. At what point?
After right now in 12 minutes.
Yes.
I was just explaining the Senate will come back now in an open session where the clerk of the Senate will read the charges against the Deputy President and also introduce the representatives of the National Assembly in that matter, including the mover of the motion in the National Assembly, the Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, member Kibwezi West. So after that, of course, it's backed by other representatives. I saw the leader of majority, Kimani Ichung'wah, yesterday tweeting that he'll be going to oust the Deputy President by way of adducing evidence at the Senate. He is also supported by the Honorable George Gitonga Murugara, the chairman of Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. He is also supported by the Honorable Otiende Amolo, Senior Counsel. He is supported by the Honorable George Kaluma, the member for Mabey, And also, I think there's one more member who is supposed to. They will be introduced shortly. Now, after that, they'll be given 3 hours.
All right.
To now level the accusations against the deputy president, and from there, the deputy president would have 2 hours to respond to what to cross-examine the representatives of the National Assembly based on what they have said.
And the clock has been ticking. When we started the day, it was at 48 hours, 47 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. The day keeps going by. And Kenyans, just to update you, we will be crossing over to the Senate any time now. All right, anytime now we will be crossing over to the Senate for the live impeachment trial. But let's also hear from the Kenyans. Just a second, let's just hear from the Kenyans. And we have our reporter, Clement Masombo, all the way from Nyeri. Good